Well, it's very likely that you recall a conversation, maybe you watched it, maybe you didn't, where James Dauma was talking about the fact that he thought it was only really a matter for, in terms of humanoid robots, if it's just really a question of the hardware catching up to the software, that the software capabilities were going to be there, that they in large measure already were, but that teaching the robots to do things it was not going to be limited by software, but it was really just up to how good is the hardware. Well, I think we can begin with this view of the Unitree product that is out right now with regard to their hardware, showing tremendous capabilities in terms of being able to move in a very human-like way and at full speed. In other words, actually moving faster than human. We're not 100% sure we even want it to be able to operate faster than a human, but running on all surfaces. Of course, we earlier saw the Tesla, the Optimus operating at those kind of levels as well. So this is something I think that we're beginning to see that the progress is there. For those who are doubting whether or not Optimus is as capable or will be capable anytime soon, I think that was, I would call that uh, a tremendous evidence that the progress is being made. Now let's look at evidence piece number two. I am not 100% sure that this appears, it may be sped up. I'm not sure whether it's sped up, but quite frankly, even if it is sped up, the dexterity and the detail that it's able to use with different fabrics, different products, different folding requirements, shows, some people are saying, well, gee, what will these robots be able to do? Well, if it can fold laundry like that, there's a bunch of different places where folding laundry is something that is required in terms of industry right now. But of course in terms of your home. But I mean, it's not really about the laundry, is it? It's about the dexterity, it's about the detail. And these hands are not, sophisticated hands. These are, not even slightly sophisticated hands. And that brings us to the third piece of of video I want to show you today. And this is just a short clip I want to show you with Scott Walter on Brighter with Herbert, where they are discussing the hand on Optimus. And I think this is well worth taking a look at.
That way. The only way I can keep the other joint from moving is if it comes into resistance, because then it's pushing against the spring and the tendon and everything else. So you don't have that kind of control to be able to do it. So what are they doing in the 22-degree freedom hand? And we'll begin to see what's going on there. They seem to have a ton of tendons on down there.
Crazy.
And I've done a breakdown of what's going on, and it turns out they don't have one tendon in the finger. So it turns out in our actual hands, we have two tendons which act as the flexors, two flexor tendons, and we have one that's called an extensor. So in the human body, there's actually three tendons that are controlling the opening and closing of your fingers. The reason why we have two here is because our grasp is way more important than the extension that we want to get to be able to get the strength. They decided to say, we're not going to put those springs back in the knuckles anymore, because now we're going to be putting extra springs in there. It's going to be much more difficult to kind of pop it open. They actually have a tendon dedicated to opening it up. And we'll jump on down here, and I've got some images sort of showing that aren't just videos, but labeling what's going on in the hand. These are all the joints. This is where the 22 degrees of freedom come from, okay?
Yeah.
So you've got those dip and pip joints, which are basically what we all call the knuckles. And that calls, it's the distal interphalangeal and the proximal interphalangeal. That's why they call them the IP joints. And the MC joint is basically where the finger attaches to the palm, okay? Mm-hmm. And you have two degrees of freedom at the MCJ and only one at each of the IP joints, okay? So that means each finger has a total of 4 degrees of freedom that you have there. Mm-hmm. And if we look in really closely, we may begin to notice where the tendons are. So if go to the next slide, and we'll see, okay, you'll see there's a tendon right down the middle. That's the flexion right in there. That I've got circled in red there. That is showing you the tendon that is allowing the finger to close. And then we have the movement back and forth, which gives us, the famous live long and prosper, the ab and adduction. And that's actually done with two different tendons, because what happens is that you pull on one tendon, it's that way. If you relax the tendon, the finger's still going to stick there unless you have a spring to make it go back. So that means, like puppet strings, they need to have it on both sides in order to go ab and add. Okay. And now we'll go to the next picture, because we can't see it in here. Whoop, on the top, when the hand was closed, we could say, wait a minute, there's some tendons on the top. So those are the extensions that allow them to be able to open it back up. That means every single finger has 4 tendons.
Well, now if you combine what you saw in the first 2 videos in terms of the ability of some of these other products to manage walking and folding clothes and things of that nature with very, very unsophisticated hands, unsophisticated limbs, unsophisticated feet, and you combine that with what you're seeing with Tesla, with the sophistication of the hands, and then you think about that in terms of what James Dauma had to say, which is that the software is there and it will be perfectly capable of the training. Well, we saw the training taking place in those videos. We saw the capability, the hardware capabilities, put that all together. And now I think you know why Elon is very, very satisfied that we will be moving into an era of the bots, being able to be used in his factory or in in the Tesla factory in 2025 in quantities, and that that we're very, very, very far along in terms of knowing exactly what's necessary and of having built the required parts. Now, I'll agree with some of the others who have wondered whether or not it could be done by 2026 in terms of all of the componentry is brand new. So all of the actuators, all of these tendons, et cetera, all brand new. So you don't know until you actually get them out there in the real world and start testing them, how long they're going to last, how frequently they're going to break, what kinds of stresses and strains might come because of weather, because of certain kinds of pressures. In other words, if you're trying to lift something at the same time that you're trying to separate it or change it or move it, different directions and things at different times, that put a different kind of stressor that might cause a problem that you didn't see initially. So then is it necessary now to go back and change the materials of the tendons, go back and change the actuators, go back and change some aspect of the way that the tendons are moving through the arms or the legs? So many things like that can happen, and it is a very sophisticated device. My guess is they are very, very far along, and that simultaneously they had hired people to start building the lines 12 months ago. I want to say is when they put out the ads for people to start building the production lines for Optimus. So my expectation would be that the design work for the lines, the machining, the aspects of purchasing, lining up and or purchasing the equipment that will be used in the production lines, at least in the pilot line, that's already done. All right. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of months, but I'm expecting to see some rather amazing Optimus videos coming up as we continue to watch these other companies as well. I have no question in my mind that some of these companies are going to build products that are successfully capable of doing menial tasks in factories and maybe less expensive than the Optimus. But the Optimus, it looks like, is going to be designed to do pretty much anything you needed to do, and therefore will be the Apple. Will be the Apple of the humanoid robot business. All right, I want to move on to one more subject before we close on this day before the inauguration. I think it will be appropriate as we talk about what's happening tomorrow, this monumental day, that we discuss what that transition really means for Tesla. I've asked Grok to help me out on this, so let's go ahead and take a look at what Grok came up with. Well, let's just go down memory lane here and take a look at a few of the things that happened during the Biden administration with regard to their relationship with Tesla and SpaceX and other Elon ventures and how that might change as of tomorrow. So Grok says, here's a comprehensive list of actions taken by the Biden administration against Elon Musk and his companies based on the available information. Number one, exclusion from the EV summit. We all remember that. The Biden administration didn't invite Tesla to the White House electric vehicle summit, which included GM, Ford, Chrysler, and only companies that were hiring United Auto Workers members. And Musk interpreted this as biased towards companies that were not unionized. I think he was right. Then there was federal investigations and legal actions. The Securities and Exchange Commission continued its scrutiny over Musk's tweets, particularly about his funding secured tweet, which Elon to this day claims was made correctly, that there was nothing wrong with his statement, but that he had to make the agreement with the SEC under duress, that they were pressuring him in ways that would have been more detrimental had he continued to fight, which he would have preferred to do. The Department of Justice investigated Tesla for potential securities and wire fraud concerning autopilot's capabilities. The Department of Justice also sued SpaceX for alleged discriminatory hiring practice, claiming the company refused to hire refugees and asylum seekers, even though there were separate laws saying that because SpaceX was a rocket company, they couldn't hire people that were asylum seekers. The national safety, we know about NISTA. Why they just, every other day they conducted multiple investigations into Tesla's autopilot system following crashes, in addition to all kinds of other things along the way. The Federal Aviation Administration required SpaceX to undergo thorough environmental assessments to make sure they weren't hurting any worms. Well, it wasn't worms, but anyway, you know my point. The Federal Trade Commission launched probes into Twitter's data privacy practices after Musk's acquisition, although they concluded no violations occurred, just more harassment. The National Labor Relations Board accused Tesla of discouraging union organization at their Buffalo plant. Turned out to be a nothing burger. The SEC investigated Tesla over fire risks associated with solar panel systems. Regulatory and contractual decisions. The Federal Communication Commission denied Starlink nearly $900 million in federal subsidies for rural. It wasn't even a subsidy, really. It was a purchase of rural broadband, arguing the technology was unreliable. However, the decision was later criticized as a part of regulatory harassment, especially since the U.S. government was using and happy to have Starlink capability in the Ukraine, in Puerto Rico. I could go down the list. Just recently, of course, in the fires. Musk companies face regulatory battles from multiple agencies, seen as a broader strategy of regulatory pressure. Public criticism and calls for investigation. President Biden publicly questioned Musk's relationship with other countries, suggesting they should be looked into, particularly after Musk's acquisition of Twitter. Biden criticized Musk's alleged illegal work status in the U.S. when he started his career, highlighting what he saw as hypocrisy on Musk's part regarding immigration policies. There were claims, particularly in social media posts, that Biden administration awarded significant contracts to Reuters, while multiple federal agencies investigated Musk companies, suggesting an attempt to influence media coverage against Musk. So these actions reflect a continuously problem between Tesla and the administration. Now, there were also California Air Resources Board, CARB, claimed that Tesla had to navigate. They caused Tesla to navigate stringent emission standards and recalls related to the FSD issue. And then we had, let's see, the FCC denied. These might all be the same. Political and public. Of course, as a result of all of this, the legal and compliance costs that Tesla and other of Elon's companies have had to endure has cost the company money and massive amounts of time. The number one thing, of course, that happens when you're involved in any kind of legal or administrative situation like this is time. It's a killer, as well as the emotional part of it as well. There's ongoing debate about how much regulatory scrutiny is necessary versus how much it might stifle innovation. Most companies often push the boundaries of technology that can lead to more regulatory pushback if not all aspects like safety or labor practices are in line with current laws and norms according to the administration in power. So I think we're going to find, based on just the overall general attitude of the new administration, that regulations are going to be pushed back. Some agencies are going to be closed. Some departments or parts of agencies are going to be closed. We've got the Chevron decision of the U.S. Supreme Court, which is going to say that regulatory decisions by some of these agencies are not allowed. The decisions that they're making are not even allowed under the law, and that certainly the courts that have been set up within these agencies are unconstitutional on their face. That's already been decided. So I think part of what the Trump administration and the DOJ Commission are going to do is recommend and actually end up closing a lot of agencies that are just not constitutionally authorized. So this should all have major impacts on the costs and the time sink that has been happening with Tesla and other Elon Musk companies. So tomorrow is going to be a great day of change for the country, a great day of change for the world. If you didn't watch I'm going to put a card up for this, because if you didn't watch the Brian Wang interview that I did on, I believe that was Saturday morning, with regard to what Trump is actually doing is beginning a new world order. That we've had a world order that's been in place. People thought it kind of changed with the Russia with the end of the Berlin Wall and the things that happened after, there was, a call for a new kind of way of seeing, countries one by one. But the truth is, the New World Order was established pretty much after World War II, and that New World Order there's been changes. The Nixon Doctrine with regard to China, the Berlin Wall coming down. Putin deciding that he was a dictator again. I mean, there has been a bunch of stuff that has happened in the course of that 75 years that has made changes in the New World Order, but basically it's been one thing. The United States as a nanny state, and not offensively, but trying to help bring other countries around the world back into business after World War II. Back into business after the Korean War, back in, getting these companies back on their feet, but also helping countries all around the world just to come into the modern day. That ends, I think, with President Trump. Doesn't mean that we won't help here and there, but we're no longer going to be, we want the rest of these countries to stand on their own 2 feet and to be equal partners in terms of trade, in terms of negotiating for world power. And I think that's going to be better for everybody around the world, but in particular, always looking out for the United States, which is the job of the President of the United States. Hope you'll enjoy watching all of the festivities tomorrow. We will have regular programming tomorrow. After the bell, of course, it won't be after the bell, but there will be a news program in the morning, along with Brian White and Larry Goldberg later in the day. All right, and let's see. I think that's all I've got for you. I'm going to put that card up with regard to the Brian Wang video interview. Oh, Brian Wang and I also did and I'll put this card up as well, an amazing video this morning with regard to the future of nukes. You do not want to miss that. I promise you. You want to see both of those videos. Which one's more important? Man, that's a hard call, because the nuke thing is going to come on strong. It's just going to be amazing, and it's going to be a huge part of this new world order. That was this morning. I'll put that card up as well. All right, that's all I got for you right now. If you like any of this stuff, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and then join Patreon and help support the channel. It's been great talking to you.